The stars were cold and silent in the neutral expanse. This region of space belonged to no empire and followed no laws. Ships that entered here did so at their own risk. It was the perfect hunting ground. Commander Vexrath stood on the bridge of his ship, the Silent Fang. His four eyes scanned the holographic display in front of him. His gray scales shifted color slightly as excitement built in his chest. After weeks of waiting, they had finally found a target. There, he said, pointing one clawed finger at a small blip on the screen. A human vessel, alone. His crew moved with practiced ease. The Kylorians were a proud species. They had ruled their corner of the galaxy for 10,000 years. Their empire stretched across 200 star systems, built on strength and conquest. They took what they wanted, and no one could stop them. The humans were new to space travel. They had only left their home planet a few hundred years ago. To the Kylorians, they were children playing in a dangerous universe. Soft, weak, easy prey. What type of ship? Vexrath asked. His sensor officer, a young female named Kira Sewell, studied her instruments. It appears to be a cargo vessel, Commander. Medium size, minimal weapons. Crew of approximately 40. Vexrath let out a low rumble of satisfaction. A cargo ship meant valuable goods. Minimal weapons meant no real fight. And 40 humans meant 40 slaves to sell in the outer markets. This would be a profitable day. Engage the cloak, he ordered. Follow them. I want to know everything about this ship before we strike. The Silent Fang shimmered and vanished from sight. Kylorian cloaking technology was the best in the known galaxy. No sensor could detect them. No eye could see them. They were ghosts in the void, invisible predators stalking their prey. Far ahead, the human ship continued on its course. It was called the Perseverance. And from the outside, it looked exactly like what the Kylorians expected. A simple freight hauler with a boxy design and worn hull plates. The kind of ship that carried food and supplies between human colonies. Nothing special, nothing dangerous. On the bridge of the Perseverance, Captain Elena Vasquez sat in her command chair and pretended not to notice the hunters behind her. Elena was 53 years old. Her black hair was streaked with gray, and her face carried the lines of someone who had seen too much. She had served 30 years in the Terran Defense Initiative before taking this assignment. She had fought in the Martian insurgency. She had survived the Proxima conflicts. She had buried friends and enemies alike. She was not afraid of aliens with sharp claws and big ships. Captain, her first officer said quietly, leaning close to her chair. His name was David Chen, and he had served with Elena for 15 years. Sensors confirm we have a tail. Kylorian Hunter class. They engaged their cloak about 20 minutes ago. Elena nodded slowly. She did not look at the secondary display on her armrest, the one that showed the Kylorian ship as a red dot following them through space. Let them think they were invisible. Let them feel confident. How long until we reach the Shroud Nebula? She asked. 6 hours at current speed. Good. Elena allowed herself a small smile. Maintain course. Keep all weapons powered down. Continue normal operations. David raised an eyebrow. You want to let them follow us for 6 more hours? I want them comfortable, Elena replied. I want them so sure of themselves that they never see what's coming. The Perseverance was not a cargo ship. It had never been a cargo ship. It was what the military called a Q ship, a warship disguised as a civilian vessel. Behind its worn hull plates sat weapons that could punch through heavy armor. Its crew of 42 were not merchants or pilots. They were veterans, every single one of them. And they were bait. For 6 months, Terran intelligence had tracked Kylorian raiding patterns. The aliens thought they were clever, attacking human ships in neutral space where no one could prove anything. But humans were good at seeing patterns. They noticed that lone ships in certain regions always disappeared. They mapped the attacks. They predicted the next target zone. Then they sent the Perseverance to be that target. Back on the Silent Fang, Vexrath watched the human ship with growing confidence. The vessel had made no course changes. It had sent no distress signals. Its crew seemed completely unaware that death followed them through the stars. Pitiful, he muttered. They call themselves a spacefaring species, and they cannot even detect a ship right behind them. Kirasol looked up from her station. Commander, I am picking up communications from the human vessel. Should I intercept? Of course. Let us hear what these creatures talk about. The bridge filled with human voices. Two crew members were arguing about something called football. Another was complaining about the food in the mess hall. A woman was telling a story about her children back on Earth. Vexrath listened with disgust. These humans were so casual, so careless. They flew through dangerous space and worried about games and food. They had no discipline, no warrior spirit. They were like cattle waiting to be slaughtered. He did not realize that every word he heard was scripted. The crew of the Perseverance knew their communications were being monitored. They played their roles perfectly, pretending to be exactly what the Kylorians expected. Hours passed. The Silent Fang followed in silence. The Perseverance flew on without changing course. In her quarters, Elena Vasquez reviewed the battle plan one more time. 17 Terran warships waited in the Shroud Nebula, hidden among the sensor-scrambling gases. They had been in position for 3 days, running silent, waiting for her signal. The Kylorians thought they were the hunters. They thought they controlled the situation. They had no idea that they were walking into a trap that had been months in the making. Elena closed her display and lay back on her bed. She would need rest before what came next. Tomorrow, the Kylorians would learn a hard lesson about humanity. On Earth, humans had not been the biggest animals. They had not been the fastest or the strongest. They did not have sharp claws or thick armor, but they had survived anyway. They had watched the predators. They had learned their patterns. And then they had hunted the hunters. Some things never changed. As the Perseverance flew closer to the Shroud Nebula, Captain Vasquez whispered into the darkness of her room, "Come on, you ugly lizards. Follow me just a little further." And behind her, invisible and confident, the Silent Fang did exactly that. 3 standard cycles passed in the cold silence of space. The Silent Fang followed its prey with the patience of a true predator. Commander Vexrath spent his time studying the humans, learning their habits, looking for weaknesses. There were many weaknesses to find. The humans slept for 8 hours every cycle, 8 hours of complete vulnerability when their minds shut down and their bodies lay still. Vexrath found this disgusting. His species needed only 2 hours of rest, and even then, they remained half aware of their surroundings. How had these creatures survived on their homeworld? The humans also ate frequently, 3 times per cycle, sometimes more. They gathered in a room they called the mess hall and consumed cooked food together. They talked while they ate. They laughed. They shared stories about their families and their lives. It was inefficient and strange. But the thing that confused Vexrath most was their attachment to each other. The humans seemed to genuinely care about their crewmates. When one of them felt sick, others would visit and bring comfort. When one had a problem, others would stop their work to help. They formed bonds that served no practical purpose. "They are weak," Vexrath told his second-in-command, a scarred veteran named Torvek. "Their emotions make them slow. Their attachments make them vulnerable. When we board their ship, they will try to protect each other instead of fighting effectively." Torvek nodded. "It will make them easy to capture, Commander." Exactly. What Vexrath did not understand was that everything he observed was a performance. The crew of the Perseverance knew they were being watched. Every conversation was planned. Every weakness was displayed on purpose. They wanted the Kylorians to feel confident. They wanted them to underestimate humans. Captain Elena Vasquez watched the reports from her intelligence officer with quiet satisfaction. The Kylorians were intercepting their communications exactly as expected. They were building a picture of the human crew as soft, careless civilians. They had no idea that the man complaining about the food had killed 30 pirates in hand-to-hand combat. They did not know that the woman telling stories about her children was an expert sniper with over 200 confirmed kills. "How much longer until we reach the nebula?" Elena asked. 2 hours, Captain," David Chen replied. "The Kylorians are still following. No change in their behavior." "Good. Signal the fleet. Tell them the fish is on the hook." Deep in the Shroud Nebula, 17 Terran warships received the message. They had been waiting in silence for days, hidden among the swirling gases that made sensors unreliable. Their crews were ready, their weapons were charged. All they needed was the target. Admiral James Morrison commanded the fleet from the bridge of the Thunder's Voice. He was an old man with white hair and cold eyes. He had lost his son to Kylorian raiders 5 years ago. This mission was professional, but it was also personal. All ships confirm ready, his communications officer reported. We are in position. Morrison nodded. Hold formation. Wait for the signal. Back on the Silent Fang, Vexrath was preparing his boarding party. 50 of his best warriors would storm the human ship and take control. They would disable the engines first, then work through the vessel section by section. Any human who resisted would be killed. The rest would be captured and sold. Commander, Kirasul said suddenly, the human ship is changing course. They are heading into the Shroud Nebula. Vexrath studied the navigation display. The Shroud Nebula was a dangerous region. The gases inside interfered with sensors and communications. Ships that entered often became lost. But it was also a good place to hide, and the humans might be hoping to lose their pursuers there. Foolish, Vexrath said. They must have detected something wrong. They are running. Should we strike now, Commander? Vexrath considered the option. He could attack here, in open space, where his sensors worked perfectly. But if he waited until they were inside the nebula, the humans would have no way to call for help. No one would hear their distress signals. No one would come to save them. No, he decided. Let them enter the nebula. Let them think they are safe. We will take them in the darkness, where no one will ever know what happened. The Silent Fang followed the Perseverance into the Shroud Nebula. The swirling gases closed around both ships like a curtain. Sensors became fuzzy and unreliable. The stars disappeared behind walls of blue and purple clouds. On the Perseverance, the crew moved to battle stations. They did it quietly, without alarms or announcements. Weapon systems powered up behind hidden panels. Shields charged in silence. The sheep was preparing to show its teeth. Elena Vasquez stood on her bridge and watched the final phase of the trap come together. In a few minutes, the Kylorians would drop their cloak and attack. They would expect an easy victory. They would find something very different. All hands, she said over the internal communication system. This is the captain. The moment we have waited for is almost here. Remember your training. Remember why we are here. Those aliens have attacked our ships and taken our people for too long. Today we show them what happens when they hunt humans. In the nebula around them, 17 warships began to move. They spread out in a perfect sphere, surrounding the area where the Silent Fang would soon reveal itself. Each ship knew its position. Each crew knew their role. The trap was ready. Vexrath gave the order he had been waiting for. Drop the cloak, power all weapons, disable their engines. The Silent Fang appeared behind the human vessel like a ghost becoming solid, its weapons locked onto the Perseverance. Vexrath smiled with all 3 rows of teeth. The hunt was over. Human vessel, he announced over the communication channel. You are now property of the Kylorian Dominion. Lower your shields and prepare to be boarded. Resist, and you will be destroyed. There was a pause, then a human voice replied, calm and almost amused. Actually, Captain Vasquez said, I think you should check your sensors again. Vexrath frowned. He looked at Kirasul, who was staring at her display with growing horror. Commander, she whispered, I am detecting multiple contacts. 18 ships. They are all around us. The holographic display updated. Red dots appeared in every direction. Human warships. Real warships, not cargo vessels. They had been hiding in the nebula, waiting, and now they formed a perfect ring around the Silent Fang. Vexrath felt something he had never felt before in his long career. For the first time in his life, he felt like prey. You see, Captain Vasquez continued, her voice carrying through the bridge of the Kylorian ship, we knew you were coming. We knew where you would hunt, and we let you follow us here because we wanted you surrounded. We wanted you trapped. She paused, and when she spoke again, her voice was harder than steel. Welcome to the Shroud Nebula, Commander. You came looking for prey. You found something else. The hunter had become the hunted, and Commander Vexrath finally understood that he had made a terrible mistake. Panic spread through the Silent Fang. Like fire through dry grass. The Kylorian crew had never experienced anything like this. For 10,000 years, they had been the hunters. They had conquered species after species. No one had ever turned the tables on them. No one had ever made them feel afraid. Until now. Commander Vexrath stood frozen on his bridge, staring at the sensor display. 18 ships surrounded his vessel. 18 human warships, each one bristling with weapons that were now pointed directly at him. The numbers were impossible. The situation was impossible. Yet here he was, trapped like an animal in a cage. How? He demanded. How did they know? How did they hide an entire fleet from us? No one answered. His crew was too busy trying to understand what had happened. Their perfect cloaking technology had meant nothing. Their careful stalking had been useless. The humans had seen through everything. On the Perseverance, Captain Elena Vasquez watched the Kylorian ship through her view screen. She could imagine the chaos happening inside. She had seen it before, in other enemies who had underestimated humanity. The confusion, the fear, the desperate search for answers. "Open a channel," she ordered. "Let's explain things to our friend." The communication screen flickered to life, showing the bridge of the Silent Fang. Vexarath stood in the center, his 4 eyes wide with shock. Behind him, his crew moved frantically at their stations. "Commander Vexrath," Elena said calmly, "I think we need to talk." The Kylorian commander forced himself to stand straighter. He would not show weakness to these humans. "You have made a mistake," he growled. "The Dominion will send 100 ships to avenge us. You will pay for this insult." Elena nodded slowly. "Maybe, but that's a problem for later. Right now you have a more immediate concern. 18 warships, all of them ready to fire. Your shields won't last 30 seconds against that kind of firepower." Vexrath's claws tightened on the arms of his command chair. "What do you want?" "I want you to understand something," Elena replied. "I want you to take a message back to your Dominion. So listen carefully." She leaned forward in her chair, her eyes locked on the alien commander. "Your people think we are weak. You see that we need sleep. You see that we feel pain. You see that we form attachments to each other, and you think these things make us easy prey." Elena paused, letting her words sink in. "But you have made a fundamental mistake. You have judged us by your own standards. You see a creature that isn't as strong or as fast as you, and you assume it must be inferior. But strength and speed are not everything. They are not even the most important things." She stood up from her chair and walked closer to the view screen. "On our homeworld, humans were never the apex predators. We didn't have sharp claws like your species. We didn't have thick armor or deadly venom. We were small and soft in a world full of things that wanted to eat us." Vexrath listened despite himself. He had studied human biology. He knew they came from a planet filled with dangerous creatures. How had such weak beings survived? "But we had something else," Elena continued. "We had endurance. We could run for hours when other animals tired. We could track prey across entire continents, following them until they collapsed from exhaustion. We didn't need to be faster. We just needed to never stop." She smiled, but there was no warmth in it. "And we had our minds. We learned patterns. We studied our enemies. We set traps. We worked together in groups, protecting each other, fighting for each other. A single human might be weak, but a group of humans is the most dangerous thing you will ever face." On the Silent Fang, the crew had stopped their frantic work. They were listening to the human captain, hearing something in her voice that made their predator instincts uneasy. This was not a prey animal talking. This was something else entirely. "You followed us for 3 days," Elena said. "You intercepted our communications. You studied our habits. You thought you knew everything about us. But the whole time, we were studying you too. We knew where your ship was every second. We led you exactly where we wanted you to go." Vexrath felt cold spread through his chest. They had known. From the very beginning, they had known. "The sleep you mocked," Elena continued, "it lets our brains process information. It makes us better at solving problems. The food we share? Those meals build bonds between crew members, bonds that make us willing to die for each other. The emotions you think make us weak, they give us something to fight for. They make us never give up." She stepped even closer to the screen, her face filling the display. "Your species conquered other races because you were stronger and faster. But we survived on our death world by being smarter and more persistent. When you hunt us, you are not hunting prey. You are hunting the most successful predators our planet ever produced. We hunted animals 10 times our size. We hunted them to extinction. And we did it with rocks and sticks before we had starships and plasma weapons. Admiral Morrison's voice came through on a private channel. Captain, all ships report ready, awaiting your command. Elena acknowledged with a small nod, never taking her eyes off Vexrath. So here is my offer, Commander. Surrender your ship. Power down your weapons. Your crew will be treated fairly, according to galactic law. No one needs to die today. Vexrath straightened his spine. His pride burned inside him. Kylorians did not surrender. It was not in their nature. For 10,000 years, they had never bent to another species. And if I refuse? He asked. Elena's expression did not change. Then we will destroy your ship. It will take less than a minute. Your crew will die knowing that their commander was too proud to save them. And we will still send our message to your dominion, except it will be written on the wreckage of the Silent Fang instead of delivered by its crew. The bridge of the Kylorian ship was silent. Every crew member looked at their commander, waiting for his decision. Some of them were young. Some had families. None of them wanted to die in this nebula, so far from home. Vexrath's mind raced through his options. He could fight. His ship was powerful. Maybe he could break through the human formation. Maybe he could escape. But he looked at the sensor display again. 18 ships, all of them larger than his. All of them ready to fire. Even if he fought perfectly, the numbers were simply too great. You expect me to believe you will treat us fairly? He asked. Humans are not known for mercy. Elena actually laughed at that. It was a short, bitter sound. Commander, mercy is exactly what makes us dangerous. Any species can kill its enemies. But it takes strength to spare them. It takes confidence to let them live. We are offering you mercy because we can afford to. Because we have already won. She let that statement hang in the air between them. Your answer, Commander. What will it be? Commander Vexrath stood in silence for a long moment. Around him, his crew waited with held breath. The entire bridge was frozen, suspended between two possible futures: surrender or death, shame or destruction. In Kylorian society, there was no word for surrender. The concept simply did not exist in their language. For 10,000 years, they had lived by a simple code. The strong take what they want. The weak die. There was no middle ground. There was no mercy. But Vexrath had seen something in the human captain's eyes that disturbed him. She was not bluffing. She was not afraid. She stood there surrounded by her fleet and offered him a choice that no Kylorian had ever been offered before. Live or die. It was simple, and yet his pride would not let him accept. Torvek, he said quietly to his second-in-command, what are our chances if we fight? The scarred veteran looked at the tactical display. His face was grim. Poor Commander. Their formation leaves no gaps. Even if we destroy one ship, the others will close ranks. We might survive 30 seconds, maybe 40. And if we target their flagship, kill their commander? Torvek considered this. It might cause confusion. Their fleet might hesitate, but humans are known for their discipline. I do not think killing one captain will scatter them. Vexrath's claws dug into the arms of his chair. Every instinct in his body screamed at him to fight. His ancestors had never run from battle. His father had died with weapons in his hands. His entire culture was built on the idea that death in combat was the highest honor. But there was another voice in his head, a quieter voice. It asked him about the young crew members who would die with him. It asked him about their families. It asked him if his pride was worth their lives. He silenced that voice. He was Kylorian. He was a hunter. He would not surrender to prey. All hand, he announced over the ship's communication system. Battle stations, prepare for combat. On the Perseverance, Captain Vasquez saw the Kylorian weapons powering up. She had expected this. She had hoped for surrender, but she had expected exactly this response. The Kylorians were too proud to accept defeat gracefully. All ships, she said calmly, the target has chosen to resist. Weapons free on my mark. Admiral Morrison's voice came through from the Thunder's voice. Captain, are you certain? We could disable them without destroying them. We could, Elena agreed, but they need to fire first. They need to understand that they had a choice and they chose wrong. That's part of the lesson. Vexrath made his decision in a heartbeat. If he was going to die, he would take the human commander with him. He would destroy the Perseverance and show these humans that Calorians did not go quietly. Target their flagship, he ordered. All weapons. Fire everything. The silent fang erupted with light. Plasma cannons blazed. Missiles launched from hidden tubes. Every weapon on the ship fired at once. All of it aimed at the Perseverance. For one brief moment, it seemed like the attack might work. The human ship's shields flared bright as the barrage struck home. But the Perseverance had been built to survive exactly this kind of assault. Its shields bent but did not break. Its hull shook but held firm. And even as the Calorian weapons hit, Captain Vasquez gave her order. Mark! 18 ships fired simultaneously. Vexrath had never seen anything like it. The human weapons did not come from random directions. They did not fire in a chaotic barrage. Instead, they struck in patterns, precise, coordinated. Each shot was timed to arrive at the exact same moment as the others. It was not just firepower. It was art. The silent fangs. Shields lasted exactly 12 seconds. They collapsed under the combined assault like a wall of glass hit by a wave of steel. The ship shuddered violently. Lights flickered. Alarms screamed. Shields down, Kirasul shouted. Hull breaches on decks 3 and 4. Return fire, Vexrath commanded. All weapons, continue firing. But his weapons were already gone. The human ships had targeted them specifically. In 8 more seconds, every cannon and missile tube on the Silent Fang was destroyed. The ship was defenseless. Still, the humans did not destroy them. The barrage stopped as suddenly as it had started. The Silent Fang drifted in space, crippled and helpless. Emergency systems kicked in, sealing breaches and restoring atmosphere. But the ship was dead. No weapons, no engines, no hope. On the bridge, Vexrath looked around at the destruction. Several crew members were injured. Consoles sparked and smoked. The proud Hunter-class cruiser had been turned into a floating wreck in less than a minute. And still, they were alive. Captain Vasquez appeared on the communication screen again. Her expression had not changed. She did not look angry or satisfied. She looked like someone completing a task that needed to be done. 47 seconds, she said. That's how long your ship survived. And we were being careful. We targeted your weapons and engines specifically. If we had wanted you dead, it would have been faster. Vexrath said nothing. What could he say? He had fought and he had lost. His pride had cost him his ship and nearly cost him his crew. I understand why you chose to fight, Elena continued. Your culture doesn't allow surrender. But I hope you noticed something. We gave you a chance. We could have destroyed you the moment we revealed ourselves. Instead, we talked. We offered terms. We gave you time to make a decision. She leaned forward, her voice becoming more intense. That's the difference between your species and mine. You see mercy as weakness. We see it as strength. Only the powerful can afford to be merciful. Only those who know they will win can offer their enemies a choice. Admiral Morrison's voice came through. Captain, boarding parties are ready. We can secure the ship in 15 minutes. Proceed, Elena ordered. She looked at Vexrath one more time. Commander, my Marines are coming aboard. They will secure your ship and tend to your wounded. Do not resist. You have lost this fight. Accept it with whatever dignity your culture allows. Vexrath felt the weight of defeat pressing down on him. But somewhere beneath the shame, he felt something else. Curiosity. These humans were not what he had expected. They fought with terrible efficiency, but they also showed restraint. They could have killed every Kylorian aboard, but they chose not to. Why? He asked. Why spare us? We attacked you. We would have taken your people as slaves. Why show mercy? Elena was quiet for a moment before answering. Because dead enemies teach nothing. Because slaves become rebels. Because mercy, given from a position of absolute power, sends a message that fear never can. She stood up from her chair, preparing to oversee the boarding operation. We don't want to rule over you, Commander. We don't want to conquer your dominion. We just want you to stop attacking our ships and taking our people. And the best way to achieve that is to send you home with a story. A story about how the humans you thought were prey turned out to be the most dangerous hunters you ever met." The screen went dark. Vexarath sat in his ruined bridge and waited for the humans to come. The humans boarded the Silent Fang through 3 entry points. They moved with the smooth efficiency of soldiers who had done this many times before. Their weapons were drawn but not firing. Their voices were calm but firm. They were professionals doing a job, nothing more. Vexarath watched them through the bridge's broken view screen. He had expected chaos. He had expected revenge. After all, the Kylorians had been raiding human ships for years. They had taken thousands of human prisoners. Surely these soldiers would want to hurt him, to make him pay for what his species had done. But the humans simply secured each deck, checked each room, and moved on. When they found injured Kylorians, they stopped to provide medical care. When they found crew members who had hidden in fear, they spoke softly and guided them to holding areas without violence. It was the most disciplined military operation Vexarath had ever witnessed. The bridge doors opened, and a squad of human marines entered. They wore heavy armor and carried weapons that looked powerful enough to punch through walls. Their leader was a tall woman with a scarred face and eyes that had seen too much death. "Commander Vexarath?" she asked. Her voice was professional, almost polite. "Yeah," he replied. "I'm Sergeant Major Rivera. You and your bridge crew will come with us. Any weapons need to be surrendered now. You will not be harmed." Vexarath hesitated. Every instinct told him to fight, to die with honor rather than submit to captivity. But he looked at his crew, Kirasul, so young and frightened, Torvek holding a wounded arm and watching him for guidance, the others all waiting to see what their commander would do. He had already failed them once by choosing pride over survival. He would not fail them again. "We have no weapons," he said. "Our personal arms were locked in the armory when we went to battle stations." "You have already secured that area." Sergeant Major Rivera nodded. "Then follow me. Captain Vasquez wants to speak with you." They walked through the corridors of the Silent Fang. The ship that had been Vexarath's pride for 15 years was now a broken shell. Walls were scorched. Ceilings had collapsed. Bodies of Kylorian soldiers lay where they had fallen during the attack, now covered with simple sheets by human medics. The humans had not left them lying exposed. They had treated the dead with respect. This small act of dignity confused Vexarath more than anything else. On his world, the bodies of defeated enemies were left as warnings. They were trophies. But these humans covered the fallen as if they were worthy of honor. They reached a large room that the humans had converted into a command center. Captain Elena Vasquez stood at a holographic display, reviewing reports from her ships. She turned as Vexarath entered. For a moment, they simply looked at each other, the hunter and the hunted, the predator who had become prey. Elena gestured to a chair. "Sit, Commander. We have much to discuss." Vexarath remained standing. "I will not beg for my life, if that is what you expect." "I don't expect you to beg," Elena replied. "I don't want you to beg. I want you to listen." She walked closer to him, and Vexarath was struck again by how small she was. Humans were short compared to Kylorians. Their bodies were soft. They had no natural weapons. And yet this small, soft creature had defeated him completely. "Your ship and crew will be returned to Kylorian space," Elena said. "We have already made arrangements. A Dominion transport will meet you at the edge of the neutral expanse in 3 days." Vexarath blinked in surprise. "You are releasing us?" "Yes." "Why?" Elena smiled slightly. "Because I want you to deliver a message. I want you to tell your council, your military leaders, everyone who will listen, exactly what happened here. I want them to know that humans are not prey. We are not weak. We are not easy targets." She paused, letting her words sink in. "We don't want war with the Dominion. War is expensive. War is painful. Both sides lose things they can never get back. We would rather have peace. We would rather have trade and cooperation. But," she continued, her voice growing harder, "if your people continue to attack our ships and take our citizens, we will respond. And we will not simply defend ourselves. We will hunt. We are very good at hunting, Commander." We spent a million years getting good at it. Vexrath felt the truth of her words in his bones. He had seen what humans could do when they decided to be predators. It was terrifying. Your species confuses me, he admitted. You show mercy to your enemies. You care for our wounded. You cover our dead. But you also fight with such cold efficiency. You destroy without hesitation when you choose to. How can you be both things? Elena considered the question carefully before answering. On Earth, we have an old saying, hope for the best, prepare for the worst. We want peace. We extend friendship to every species we meet, but we also know that the universe is dangerous. We know that some will see our kindness as weakness. So we prepare, we train, we build weapons and ships and plans for every possible threat. She looked directly into his 4 eyes. The mercy we show is not weakness, Commander. It is a choice. We choose to be kind because we can afford to be. We choose to be gentle because we are strong enough that gentleness costs us nothing. But make no mistake, if we are pushed, if our people are threatened, if we have no other choice, we will become something terrible, something your species has never faced. A young human soldier passed by, barely old enough to be called an adult. He nodded politely at Vexrath as he walked. It was a simple gesture, an acknowledgement between warriors. Vexrath watched the young human go. On his world, youth meant inexperience and weakness. But human youth were different. They were raised on stories of survival. They were taught from childhood that the universe was dangerous and that they needed to be ready. Even this young soldier moved with the confidence of someone who had been trained for war. I will deliver your message, Vexrath said finally. I will tell the council what happened here, but I cannot promise they will listen. I know, Elena replied. Some of your leaders will dismiss this as an isolated incident. Some will want revenge. Some will refuse to believe that humans could defeat a Kylorian ship so easily. She handed him a small device, a data chip. This contains recordings of everything that happened today. Every sensor reading, every communication, the entire battle from start to finish. Show it to whoever will watch. Let them see for themselves what happens when humans stop being prey. Vexrath took the chip. It felt heavy in his hand, though it weighed almost nothing. You are strange creatures, he said. In 10,000 years, no species has ever treated us this way. You defeat us completely, then send us home with our lives and our honor intact. I do not understand it. Elena's expression softened slightly. Maybe that's the point, Commander. Maybe understanding each other is the first step towards something better than war. She extended her hand. It was a human gesture, Vexrath knew, a greeting, a sign of respect between equals. He hesitated only a moment before taking it. Her grip was firm and warm. Safe travels, Commander. Tell your people what you learned here today, and maybe someday your ships and ours will meet as friends instead of enemies. 3 days later, Vexrath stood on the bridge of a Dominion transport, watching the human fleet disappear into the distance. The data chip was safe in his pocket. His crew, those who had survived, were resting below. He thought about everything that had happened. The trap, the battle, the mercy, the message. Humans were not what his people believed. They were not weak prey waiting to be captured. They were survivors. They were hunters. They were creatures who had clawed their way up from the mud of a death world and refused to stop climbing. And now they had reached the stars. Vexrath did not know if the council would listen to him. He did not know if war could be avoided. But he knew one thing with absolute certainty. The galaxy would never be the same. Humanity had arrived, and the hunters of old would have to learn to share the stars with something new. Something dangerous. Something that would not be prey for anyone. As the transport jumped to faster than light speed, Vexrath whispered to himself, "They were never prey. We just couldn't see it." The stars blurred around him, carrying him home with a story that would change everything.